the chase, towards the chase for the Hersheys Cup Series Championship Season 7 draws ever closer. We welcome you as we cap off the road course weekend here from Watkins Glen International Raceway. We saw the trucks here a couple days ago. Of course, the Pizza Deck Series drivers, they were over on the other side of the globe at Champs-Élysées, but it's been a race weekend full of road course racing, and we're getting ready here to find out if we're going to see another driver pop themselves up into the 16-driver chase for the championship with only 2 races remaining before we head into next week's race at Hillside. And there's a lot of scenarios that come when we come into these kind of races, so I'm going to do my best to try and let you know who's in the hunt, who is basically out of the hunt, what the criteria is for drivers to get themselves into position. It's going to be crazy, so hopefully you've got your brains on lockdown, and hopefully my brain is not going to fry when I give you all the information I need to during the course of this race. But first, let's get down to what you're able to see and what you're able to know right now. First off, we've got an all-CJ Racing front row, K Shearer, who has won at least one charter race every year since he's been full-time. For the last 2 seasons, he won in his rookie year at Dover. He won last year, I should say, at Rio de Janeiro. He has been in the playoffs for the last 2 seasons. Now, right now, he has not won, but if you look down the bottom right of your screen, after a good run at Darlington last week, K Shearer is now up there in the playoff points via where he's positioned in the standings, which right now would be 12th overall in the point standings. So K Shearer looking for a good run here today, possibly looking for what would be his first win of the season. He does have a win this year in the All-Star race, but that was a non-points event. Alongside of him is his teammate and team owner in his final season of the Hersheys Cup Series, C Dodd. One of his career wins came at a road course. Matter of fact, I think 2 of his wins came at a road course. I think he ended up winning at Tula, and I think Tula was in the Pizza Deck Series. So one of his wins, I know, was at a road course back in his championship season. I'm going to completely ignore the command to fire the engines because there's a lot I got to talk about here, and that was at Mid-Ohio. So he starts on the front row here, trying to make the playoffs, the former champion in his final season in Hersheys Cup Series competition. Let's give you your top 10. The point standings coming in this race, presented by Blame Shelley Insurance. Kyle Mathews, who went to victory lane for the 2nd time this season, back a couple weeks ago at the Daytona road course. He's the points leader, but only by 4 points over Joseph Srigley. Scott Roush, the rookie points leader, he is 3rd. John Arndt, another 2-time winner, is 4th. And Jake Baskinger completes top 5. Then it's Levi McIntyre, Dylan Young, John Citadino, Kyle Keith, and Cody Smart. Now, as you look here at the bottom right of your screen at the drivers that currently have a win that are locked in and the drivers that are currently in via the point standings, there's a couple of names that are kind of missing from that list. One of them is Dallas McIntosh. McIntosh did not have a good run at Darlington last week, needed a good run to get back into the top 35 in points. He now finds himself mired even further down, 39th in the point standings, and there's about 34 points separating him from 30th in the standings. So he needs a good run today. A second win would be ideal, and he's rolling off from the 7th position in that number 14 Dodge. Another driver that also you see has reappeared on the grid, and that is T Walch, a Daytona 500 winner who had a good run at Darlington, was able to move himself up in the point standings to the 24th position in points. So right now his win would again count towards a spot in the chase for the championship. But as you look down there at some of these names that are in the playoffs, down near the bottom of the list, like Kyle Keith, Johnny Gardner, K Shearer, Seth Cole, Joshua Osborne, Keith Batson. But let's not forget, those drivers right now are in via points. There's a lot of drivers that with a win or a good finish today, we could see their names up there when we get into Hillside. Drivers like Trent Dunham, Holly Davis, Emmanuel Hartnett, C Dodd, J McCloud, Charles Sandfer, Daniel Guilbert, Dylan Poteet, Dougie Shears, Benny Watson, Benjamin Miles, Zachary Fitzwater. They still all, mathematically, here today could get in there. And of course, with a win, any of those drivers automatically leapfrog the other drivers that don't have a win, and they would get up on the grid of drivers that have a win and maybe lock themselves up a spot in the playoffs. So there's just so much that could take place here today, and this is a racetrack where we've seen already this week in the Truck Series race where it could come down to fuel strategy as to who's going to win this event. So that also is very, very important. Someone might roll the dice to try and get themselves a spot to compete for this season's championship. But here we go, 23 laps of racing, 5 added laps from our truck race. They cannot make it that scheduled distance on fuel. Fuel strategy racing, it's time to go here at Watkins Glen. Let's roll. Maybe a little strategy worked out there between the teammates. K Shearer got the early jump. Chris Dodd left him in line. And so Shearer gets out in front, and Chris will move into second. Zachary Fitzwater lines up there in third. Now there are 2 former winners of this event that are in this field here tonight out of 6 previous winners at the Glen. Zachary Fitzwater being one of them and Benjamin Miles being the other. Fitzwater went coast to coast, pole to win here back in season 5. Benjamin Miles won here in season 4 as everyone traverses their way through the dogleg, the chicane, the boot, the bus stop, whatever you want to call it. And the other 4 winners of this event back seasons 1 through 3 was Holden Gluba, Joshua Zakuli, and Kat Tellier. We saw Tellier in the Champs-Élysées race here yesterday, or not here, but yesterday over in France. And then the former winner of this race, the defending winner of this race, the eventual champion, Brooke Allen. This was one of her 3 wins last season when she picked up the championship. A lot of Fitzwater Australia racing cars up here. The 89, the 18, the 59, all battling for what would be 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Dallas McIntosh's Dodge right there as well. Then Daniel Voyles in 7th, Kyle Mathews in 8th. Mathews won the last road course race at Daytona, trying to pick up what would be his 3rd win of the season, and that would be a all-time high for the 09 team. Kyle Mathews has only ever won 2 races in a single season, of course this year, and back during his championship season in season 3. Now K Shearer, as seen on the bottom right, currently is in a playoff position. Chris Dodd did not have a good run at Darlington. He fell out of a playoff position. Now 21st overall in the point standings. So you gotta wonder if there might be some team orders that'll go on here at some point. I mean, would K Shearer, who looks like he's going to very easily make it into the playoffs, even with a good run here, would he be willing to move over and allow Chris Dodd to also make it into the playoffs with a win? I mean, you know, it's obviously too early to speculate all this, but I mean, is there something like that where, you know, they would work together? Remember, this is the final year for CJ Racing. K Shearer, Chris Dollerton, Tim Walsh, they're going to have to find new teams next year, as Chris Dodd not only going to be leaving the Hersheys Cup Series, but also his team will be shutting down as well. Right now, Tim Walsh is the lone representative via win for CJ Racing that would be in the playoffs. I mean, would they work it out that they could maybe get 3 of their cars into the playoffs? I don't know. Tell you who's fading fast, and that's Zachary Fitzwater in the 59. He was up in the 5th position, and now he's fallen all the way back to a battle for 9th with Kyle Mathews. Car that's on the move, that's the 83 of Chris Dollerton, another entry out of the CJ Racing stables. Now Dollerton comes into this race 32nd in the points. If he can find victory lane, that would probably move him into the top 30 in the points. And maybe we can see Chris Dollerton, who was in the playoffs for the Pizza Deck Series last year, making it into the playoffs for the Hersheys Cup Series this year. Teammates side by side. That is for 8th place. Charles Sandfer is going to complete the pass. Oh, trouble in the back! That's McCloud around. Caution is out. And McCloud is still sitting up there on the entrance to the S's against the steel guardrail. That's going to blockade the track for a number of drivers. Probably the last one that wanted to see the caution was K Shearer. He was opening up the gap between himself and teammate Chris Dodd. But the yellow flag is out. The car I saw around was the 51 of McCloud, and that will bring the yellow out and bunch everyone back up for a restart. This also is interesting because I think the fuel window for these drivers is somewhere between 15 to 17 laps. This would not quite put them in their fuel window if they were to come to pit road this time, but would someone maybe be willing to roll the dice, give up valuable track position to come to pit road, and thinking maybe they can save enough fuel to make it to the end? We'll have to see, because the pits will be open at the completion of lap 5 going on to lap 6, so it would be borderline right on the cusp of how far the fuel window can go. If I'm these drivers up at the front, I don't pit. If I'm towards the back, I've got nothing to lose. I would then probably come to pit road and maybe try and make it the rest of the way. But if I'm Shearer and Chris Dodd, Cole Baker, Anderson, McIntosh, I stay out. I don't pit because it's not worth giving up that track position if you're not dead certain you're going to be able to make it the rest of the way on fuel. Well, we know McCloud brought out the caution, but let's see who else might have been involved. Jessica Shelton, our Memphis winner. A lot of damage on her Mountain Dew spiked Chevrolet. Trent Dunham's on the pit lane. Trent was just outside the cut line of drivers trying to make it into the playoffs via points. Doesn't look like a whole lot of damage on that car as they're trying to go underneath the car and repair. Joseph Srigley, second in the points, though. A lot of damage on his car. A lot of damage as well in the Mitsubishi Lancer. Or, I'm sorry, the Nissan Maxima, rather. I'm going way back in time. Of Brandon Gonzales. There is McCloud. He's the one I saw get out of shape. Looks like Keith Batson's got some damage. He comes in that last position in the playoffs right now. So, ironically enough, the driver that came in the last playoff position and the driver that was the first driver just outside of the playoff position, both involved in this wreck, Trent Dunham and Keith Batson. Hey, look through the rest of the field. Looks like everybody else is pretty much okay. Oh, there is some damage there on the right side of rookie Holly Davis. And we got drivers hitting pit road. Is everyone coming to pit road? Everybody's coming to pit road. Wow. Nobody is staying out. So, that at least helps these guys up here at the front, the fact that everybody else is pitting along with them. And I'm looking on the left side just to see, or now on the right side, to see if anybody does risk it to stay out to start up front, and nope, nobody is. So is this the pit stop they have to make? Will they be good to go on fuel the rest of the way? I don't know. Trent Dunham's now leaving pit road. I think he will be on the lead lap, but he also, I think, is going to have to restart behind the pace car just in front of the leader. So that's going to be a little wild. As you saw right there, K Shearer loses the lead. Chris Dodd with a very fast pit stop. I think they went with 2 tires only. So I'm not sure if they got that car completely full of fuel or not, but he's risking it to get by his teammate K Shearer for the race lead. So now Shearer will line up in second. Seth Cole with some strategy, now up to third. Jordan Anderson fourth. And Cole Baker will be the top 5 when we go back green. Let's go back and look at a replay. What brought out the caution for the first time here today at Watkins Glen. As was going into turn 1, or actually coming out of turn 1. And Jordan Lopez just gets into the left rear quarter panel of the 51. Actually, it's the right rear quarter panel. Turns him down in front of Shane Lake. Lake is going to avoid as McCloud tries to save it. Car comes back up the track. He's going to get into, there's where Holly Davis got her damage, and right in front of Jessica Shelton. Woo, near miss for Tim Walsh. There's where Brandon Gonzales gets involved. Hard hit for the 23. And that's what sent McCloud up there into the steel guardrail. Then he's going to shoot back down. And then he's going to get Srigley. Srigley's going to get a hit from Keith Batson. Benny Watson just avoided. Anthony McCrury got a piece of it there in the 61. And Trent Dunham, oh, there's the shot for Trent, making contact with the left front of his Dodge. And McCrury had to come to a stop as the track was completely blocked up in front of him. But my goodness, McCloud was a pinball getting hit by 3 or 4 different drivers. He first got clipped by Lopez, bounces off Lake, bounces off Davis, bounces off Shelton, then bounces off Srigley. So a wild ride for the 51 out of Tweenix Racing. And looks like he's going to be going to the garage along with probably Shelton, Gonzales, maybe Batson. We're going to have to wait and see as we go back for the restart here at Watkins Glen. Green flag set to come back out here on lap 7 of 23. Are these drivers good to go on fuel? We'll have to wait and find out. 4 drivers will not take the green flag for this restart. James McCloud, Jessica Shelton, Brandon Gonzales, and Joseph Srigley. So that's going to hurt the 21 in his battle for the points lead with Kyle Mathews. Trent Dunham is a lap down, according to the scoring monitor. I think it's actually going to put him scored on the tail end of the lead lap when he crosses the line here, but he has to restart ahead of the leaders because he came out of pit road behind the pace car. Chris Dodd, the race leader, over K Shearer, Seth Cole, Jordan Anderson, Cole Baker. Green flag back in the air, and oh boy, this is going to be hairy going down to turn 1. K Shearer trying to get the spot from teammate Chris Dodd for the race lead. These two teammates will carry it down into the S's. And Shearer, I think, is going to get it clear. Or is he? Yes, he is. Shearer will go back to the front. Chris Dodd slots back to second. Seth Cole in third. Anderson fourth. As they all try and make their way around the Trent Dunham machine, who I can't tell if he is off the pace or not. He had pretty good contact with the left front of his car under that caution with that wreck. And that wreck actually reminded me a lot of that wreck that took place involving David Reagan and David Ruderman. Obviously, nobody flipped up in the air, but just the way the 51 was pinballed and just couldn't stop spinning just kind of reminded me of that. But Chris Dodd says, all right, you may have been able to use the one as a pick against me, but I want the lead back here, teammate. As he is right there. Seth Cole used some pit strategy there to move up into the top 5. Seth Cole trying to keep himself up there points-wise to make it into the playoffs. Seth Cole's actually one of a number of New York natives that are in this field here today. Seth Cole, Benjamin Miles, Johnny Gardner, Shane Lake, John Cittadino, all New York natives. So now the big question that I have is, can these drivers make it the rest of the way on fuel? They came to pit road at the completion of lap 5 onto lap 6. The fuel window's between 15 to 17 laps, which means if they stretch it as far as it goes, they are going to be right there at where they need to be. The thing that I'm a little bit worried about when I look at a couple of these drivers and the pit stops they made, Chris Dodd and Seth Cole, because Chris Dodd, it looked like, went with a 2-tire strategy in order to get the lead from teammate K Shearer. Seth Cole looked like went with a strategy that was a little bit quicker to get himself up in the top 5. My question would be, did they get their tanks completely filled with fuel? Good race right now for CJ Racing, at least for 3 of their cars, as Chris Dollerton now is in the top 5. Now battling with Jordan Anderson for 4th. So right now the odds in favor of a CJ Racing car going to victory lane. Their other teammate, Tim Walsh, who just narrowly avoided that big wreck back there on lap 4. He is currently scored in 26th. Just trying to keep himself in the top 30 in the point standing so that way he can get into a playoff position. Now we look at the drivers that are out of the race. Jessica Shelton came into this race 15th in points. So she's going to take a bit of a hit in the point standings, but I don't think she's going to fall down near the danger zone of 30th in the standings. Joseph Srigley, he's been very consistent this year. He's got a nice points build up between himself and the rest of the drivers that don't have a win, so I think this DNF's not necessarily going to hurt him. But James McCloud, he came into this race 22nd in the points. He's got a shot with a good run to make it up into a playoff spot via points. And Brandon Gonzales came into this race 31st in the point standing. So both those drivers, if they had been able to leave with at least a decent run, they would have had a shot maybe to get into the playoffs last minute next week at Hillside. One thing I am noticing is that K Shearer has not been able to break away from everybody else like he did on the initial start of this race. Before, when that caution came out, he was building about a 2.5 second lead between himself and Chris Dodd. Now, he's not been able to even break away by half a second. And Chris Dodd's got company with him as well. Seth Cole, Anderson, Dollerton, Cole Baker, and Johnny Gardner. So as much as we have a lot of the CJ Racing cars running up here doing well, how about the Fitzwater Australia Racing cars? The 89 of Anderson, the 18 of Baker, and the 7 of Gardner all up here running well. The only one that's missing for that team is the former winner at this racetrack, that being Zachary Fitzwater. You see Dallas McIntosh back there, just trying to get a good finish to get himself back into the top 30 in the points for his Thornton win to count towards a spot in the playoffs. And I'm also seeing Charles Sandfer back there. Charles Sandfer trying to get himself into the playoffs via points. He's the only one of the Retro Racing Enterprises cars that hasn't won this season. Sandfer comes into this race 23rd in the points, and the gap between himself and Keith Batson, who came in that final playoff position via the point standings, is 27 points. Matter of fact, I'm a little curious about that 39. As there you see Trent Dunham back here with Dylan Poteet. There's the 39. He's 35th right now. He's got a lot of damage. Now, Trent Dunham's in 38th a lap down, so he won't pass Batson in points. But what about somebody like Anthony McCrury, Holly Davis, Emmanuel Hartnett? How far back were they? McCrury was 17 points back. 18 points back was Holly Davis. And 26 points back was Emmanuel Hartnett. Chris Dodd is also 26 points back. So if he continues to run where he is, he might be able to pass Keith Batson to get into the playoffs. Look at that run he got out of the final corner, though. Gets alongside K Shearer for the lead. Chris Dodd wants to win. Never mind finishing well. And they're going to carry this battle back here into the S's again. Now, the last time K Shearer won, this time Chris Dodd says, nope, I'm keeping my car here. This is a good battle between two teammates, both wanting to make it into the playoffs. Chris Dodd might have the advantage coming down here into this corner. Let's see. Look at Seth Cole back there, thinking about maybe going 3 wide through the bus stop. Not a wise decision. And Chris Dodd around the outside line is going to take the lead. Wow, what a power move by the 8. So K Shearer back to second. Now Seth Cole wants that spot. And things getting racy up here at the front. This is good. Chris Dodd now to the lead. Shearer slots back in second. And Chris Dodd set K Shearer up that entire lap. Made the move on the outside line coming to the start-finish line. Kept to his inside through the S's. And then capitalized on the exit of the bus stop going into the carousel on the outside line. Got that momentum. And now he's up in front leading this way. And how about J Gardner also making some moves there on that last lap? He's now up to third. And the caution is out. The caution is out. And this right there, I think, might be the yellow flag that's going to throw all fuel strategy out the window. They're either going to come to pit road under this caution and be good to go on fuel, or they might be able to stay out and save enough fuel to make it to the end now. Gardner going to go for another spot on K Shearer. Can he clear him? Yes, he can. Wow, J Gardner's got a fast race car. Former winner from last season at Talladega. Gardner looking for his first win this year. And Gardner comes into this race 11th in the point standings. He's in a playoff spot right now. J Gardner looking to make the playoffs for what I think would be the first time in his Hersheys Cup Series career. Now going to see maybe if he can get by Chris Dodd before they get to the start-finish line. I don't think he's going to be successful, though. Looks like the wreck was out of the final corner, as Chris Dodd will lead us to our second caution of the day. Wow, that was a fun green flag run there in the closing stages, but just before that caution came out. And let's see who may have brought that yellow flag out here. And it might have been the rookie points leader, Scott Roush. Third overall in the point standings. And yeah, I think it was the 60. The 60 might have gotten turned off the final corner. Well, Trent Dunham, I think, was hoping for a big wreck so he could pick up some spots here, but he's going to still stay trapped a lap down. And now as Chris Dodd and company go to pick up the pace car, we're going to go back and see what happened to Scott Roush. Bring out our second caution of the day, past the halfway point here at the Glen. And there you see it. Battle for 34th place between Scott Roush and Shane Lake. Lake gets to the inside. I think Roush tried to pinch him down there, and Lake got him in the right rear. Hooks him around and sends him down towards the pit wall, but he never hit anything, did Scott Roush. Just lost a couple more spots on the racetrack. So a single car spin out of the final turn brings out this yellow flag, and that could be a saving grace for a number of these race leaders. Let's see if they come to pit road, or do they think they can save enough under pacing to make it the rest of the way? Well, this is definitely going to be interesting. None of the leaders hit pit road. 4 drivers did hit the pit lane, though. The highest run of them was 28th place Tim Walsh coming to pit road. So I think he feels these drivers won't be able to make it on fuel. Also on pit road were the cars of Dougie Shears, Dylan Poteet, and the damaged machine of Keith Batson. So if they are correct, and everybody else runs out of fuel, those guys might be leaving with a top 5 finish. We'll have to wait and see. Chris Dodd stayed out. He'll be the leader. When we get the line, it'll be 8 laps to go. J Gardner lines up second, trying to win in front of his home crowd. K Shearer third, Jordan Anderson fourth. 5th place, Chris Dollerton. And it's Cole Baker, Seth Cole, Daniel Voyles, Charles Sandfer, and Dallas McIntosh, your top 10. It's been a battle today of CJ Racing versus Fitzwater Australia Racing. Let's see what happens in these final 8 laps as Chris Dodd gets us back underway here at Watkins Glen. And boy, he was ready for the green. He opened up to about a car length distance back to J Gardner already. But remember, Gardner was really good on the long run on that last green flag stint. So as this race progresses towards the checkers, that 7 car might come alive again. It's also bunched everyone back up, so drivers that were outside the top 10 just before that yellow flag might be able to battle their way up to the front. One driver I'm seeing that's doing just that. How about John Arndt? Arndt started this race from the 41st position. He's about to crack the top 10, 2-time winner this season. And J Gardner's about to crack the back bumper of Chris Dodd. He is all over it out of the carousel. This has undoubtedly been the best, most consistent season J Gardner has had in the Hersheys Cup Series to date. He's currently in a playoff position via points, but he wants to win. Sounds like a car might have just been leaving pit road, unless I was just hearing some other engines. Oh, there's Seth Cole. Seth Cole's way back here. I don't know what happened to the 98, whether he had to come to pit road or not just before we went green, but he's back in 33rd place. Oh boy, if that's the case, what about all these other guys? Does that mean these guys can't make it? Oh my goodness. That's the one thing about fuel strategy races. They are so nerve-wracking. And if you think it's nerve-wracking for me up here in the booth, just think how these drivers feel in the cockpits and those crew chiefs feel up on the war wagons. Gardner wants the lead, and the caution is out. Maybe Seth Cole was in a wreck. Maybe that's what brought the yellow flag out. So caution's out again, and now this, I think, will definitely ice it in terms of these drivers being able to make it on fuel. I think they'll definitely be able to save. We'll probably be going back green somewhere with about 4 to 5 laps remaining, and Chris Dodd, another couple laps, he won't have to defend his race lead from J Gardner. So that's at least a little reprieve for him, but I think these upcoming final few laps are going to be absolute pandemonium. There's the skid marks coming out of turn 1. I don't know if that was from the McCloud incident earlier, or if that was what actually brought out this yellow flag. But I don't think you'll see the leaders hitting pit road again this time. I think they're going to stay out and save. So as we wait for Chris Dodd to catch up to the pace car, let's see if Seth Cole indeed did bring out this 3rd caution of the day here at Watkins Glen. I have to say, honestly, I'm a little perplexed how this one actually brought out a caution. We'll see if maybe there's actually a legit reason here. You see right there where Shane Lake turns the 3 of Holly Davis, and I guess her car is too far sideways and is practically stopped. They had to throw the yellow. I mean, she bounced off of, I think that was J Bryant. That kept the car from going completely around, but since her car did come to almost a complete stop in front of Shane Lake, and there were a couple of other cars behind, I guess interstate officials felt they had no choice but to throw the yellow flag. So this is going to be a very interesting restart for sure, in 2 reasons. Number 1, this is pretty much going to make sure, I think, that everybody is going to be able to make it on fuel now. And secondly, everyone's bunched up, and we're probably going to get the restart with about 5 laps to go. So this is going to be very interesting. Let's take a look now as we head back to live action and see what's going to happen to finish out today's race at the Glen. And I'll tell you who this caution was actually a big break for, and that was actually the 98 of Seth Cole, who, when we went back green, came to pit road. So he is still on the lead lap. He's starting at the very tail end of the field, but at least he's now up there and able to pick up some spots here when we go back green instead of running way back behind the field. So catching a big break there was the driver out of Tweenix Racing. So here we go, getting ready to line them up for what's going to be a total of 4 laps to go here at Watkins Glen. Chris Dodd leads the way over Johnny Gardner. Gardner was starting to reel Chris Dodd in there for the race lead before that caution came out, so we'll see what he can do with him here on the restart. K Shearer right there, he's been up in the top 3 all day. Jordan Anderson lines up in 4th, Cole Baker there in 5th, and right now Chris Dollerton rides in 6th. So the top 6, 50% is made up of CJ Racing cars, 50% made up of Fitzwater Australia Racing cars. But then you got the Ford of Daniel Voyles in 7th, the Toyota of Jordan Lopez there in 8th, and then you've got a Chevy and a Dodge completing the top 10 with Charles Sandfer and Dallas McIntosh. So here we go. It's going to be a shootout to finish it out here at Watkins Glen. Chris Dodd going to lead them down here to the restart zone, waiting on the flagman. Let's see if we'll finish this race under green flag conditions. Green flag back in the air, and this time Johnny Gardner stayed with Chris Dodd. He did more than stay with him. He's going to try and take the lead down here into turn 1. You can hear the 8 get on the rumble strip there. As Gardner going to try and get him through the S's, and he will clear. New leader, New York native Johnny Gardner. Johnny Gardner, as you can see on the bottom right, points-wise would be in the playoffs, but he wants to, for the very first time, have a win lock him into the playoffs. Gardner has had Hersheys Cup Series wins. We alluded to his last win last season at Talladega, but that was during the playoffs. Gardner has yet to have a win lock him into a Hersheys Cup Series playoff race. And right now, he's got a very fast car. He's starting to open up a little bit of distance back there to Chris Dodd in 2nd. K Shearer under fire from Cole Baker. That's for 3rd. And then side-by-side there between Chris Dollerton and Jordan Anderson. That's a battle for 5th place. Looks like Anderson will hold on to the spot for the moment. Baker hasn't quite got the 80 cleared. Now he does. So move Cole Baker to the 3rd position. Gardner, that last time by, opened up almost a full second between himself and the 8 of Chris Dodd. Chris Dodd showed that he has a good long-run car as he was able to, back I think it was on our 2nd green flag run, he was able to run down K Shearer and pass him for the lead on the outside line going down to turn 1 of all places. But as he's waiting for that car maybe to come back in, he's now having to defend 2nd place because Cole Baker's got a full head of steam. Johnny Gardner continuing to grow his advantage back to 2nd place. That's where the best battle is on track right now. Baker now trying to get to the inside of Chris Dodd. No dice. And Gardner's coming to pit road. Chris Dodd as well. Voyles is on pit lane. I thought they could make it on fuel. Apparently that's not the case. We've got pit stops closing in on 2 laps to go. The race leader is in 3rd place in. Baker's now the new leader. K Shearer has stayed out. Chris Dollerton, Jordan Anderson, they've all stayed out. That's Charles Sandfer, Dylan Young back there, Cody Smart and Cody Llamas as well. They are staying out. When they hit the line next time, it's the white flag. Is anyone going to have to pit coming to the white? Or are all these drivers going to risk it? Now, Cole Baker, we really didn't talk about him in terms of a race win today, but now we kind of have to since he's in the lead. Baker comes into this race 36th in points. So if he makes his way into the top 30 in the standings, Baker would head into Hillside with one of the playoff positions, provided he stays in the top 30 in points. But still the question of whether he can make it or not. Dollerton is now into 2nd. He just got around teammate K Shearer. Shearer now under fire for 3rd. Jordan Anderson trying to get by him. Then you got Sandfer and Dylan Young closing in. Is anyone pitting this lap? Baker is not. Dollerton is. Sandfer is. Looks like K Shearer may be heading for pit road as well. Baker's going to stay out. Anderson's going to stay out. The 2 teammates, they're going to go for it. Anyone else staying out? I'm trying to look back there. Looks like Cody Smart staying out. And is that Cody Llamas behind him? It is. The 12 in the 48. Cody Smart figuring, what have I got to lose? I already have a win in the bank at Darlington last week. Cody Llamas trying to get himself out of the cellar of the point standings. He comes into this race in the 41st position in points. It's kind of ironic. You look here at 3 of our top 4. Baker 36th in points, Llamas 41st in points, Anderson 42nd. These drivers are relying on the fuel to get them a good finish on what's been a dismal season. And for Baker, he's trying to make it into the playoffs for the first time in what I believe would be 4 seasons. Out of the carousel. That car still sounds like it's under power, so I think he's okay for the moment. It all matters on where that car runs out of fuel, if it runs out of fuel at all. Baker through the final portion. As long as he keeps it under power, I think he's going to be okay. Through the final turn, Cole Baker turns for home. He'll get the win here today at Watkins Glen. Has he made it into the playoffs is the question. He takes the checkered flag. Does Cole Baker in the 18 first win of the season? How about that? 1-2 finish for the Fitzwater Australia Racing Chevrolet team. And Cole Baker, has he just made a last-ditch effort to put himself into this season's Hersheys Cup Series chase for the championship? Look at the top 10. Got Anderson there in second. Great run for him. We already mentioned Cody Smart up there in third. Llamas with a great run in fourth. Tim Walch up there in fifth with Dougie Shears in sixth. Remember, these are the drivers that pitted under the second caution. And they're going to get top 10s. Keith Batson up there in seventh. Seth Cole, he started dead last on that restart. He was back, I think it was in 38th. He's going to finish in the 8th position. Poteet there in 9th. And Gardner, who had to pit from the lead, is going to complete the top 10. How about some of those comeback finishes for some of these drivers? My goodness. And Cole Baker. Let's look at our full finishing results here. But what does this mean for Baker? Was this enough to get him into the top 30 in points? He came into this race, if my calculations are correct, 19 points. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't was it 19? No, it was 17 points, behind 30th in the standings. I'm pretty sure with this win, he's going to move into the top 30 in the standings. It's all going to depend on Hillside for him to have a good run, whether he's going to get a playoff spot or not. But you look here, we gave you the top 10, down to Johnny Gardner. Chris Dollerton's going to be in 11th. Chris Dodd there in 12th. I mean, for Gardner, Dollerton, and Chris Dodd, obviously they couldn't make it on fuel, but they get the best finishing results they possibly could, having come to pit road. Daniel Voyles 13th. J Baskinger, where in the world did he come from? He got 14th. 15th for Dylan Young, and then the rest of the top 20 were Jordan Lopez. K Shearer, he kind of faded back there when he had to come to pit road. He's going to get 17th. Dallas McIntosh 18th. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get him up into the top 30. He may have to hope he's at least mathematically close enough to get into the top 30 next week at Hillside. And then it was R.J. Reynolds and Benny Watson completing the top 20. But as we look on down further through the results of this, down through 30th place, there's some names there that kind of stand out to me that really needed a good run and didn't get it. Namely, Anthony McCrury finishing in 35th. Just ahead of him, Scott Roush in 34th. And take a look at K Mathews there. Good thing he's got those 2 wins because he finished 36th here today. Almost the last car on the lead lap. Trent Dunham, a tough break there for him on 2 counts. Number 1, he got pinned a lap down, was never able to get back on the lead lap. And number 2, the driver he was trying to get by, Keith Batson in the point standings, is going to come away with a lucky top 10. So Trent Dunham's going to really have to try hard here if the former champ's going to get into the playoffs this season. And then 4 drivers finished out of the race. James McCloud, Jessica Shelton, Brandon Gonzales, and Joseph Srigley is going to take a hit in the point standings as well. So it might be blown wide open in terms of who can make it into the playoffs via points next week, because second and third in points, they both finished way down in the finishing results here today. Roush in 34th and Srigley in 42nd. But We're going to have to wait and see what the points indeed do look like heading into Hillside Raceway. But that's going to do it here this weekend from Watkins Glen. What a finish. What an unexpected winner. Came down to fuel strategy. That's why we love coming to Watkins Glen. Hope you guys enjoyed this race. If you did, be sure to give us a favorite, like, subscribe to become part of the crew today. We have shown you your full finish results, and here you go. Here's your rookie point standings and your overall point standings heading into next week. We will determine the 8 playoff drivers for the Coors Light Truck Series, the 12 playoff drivers for the Pizza Hut Series, and the 16 playoff drivers for the Hersheys Cup Series, as we will have the regular season finale weekend at Hillside Raceway. It's a shorter track, but it holds them 3 wide, several rows deep. You're not going to want to miss it. What a regular season finale it's going to be. Who will make the playoffs? Find out next week, as you've been watching a production of the NCRA Offline Racing at its best.